What's up guys, I'm Glenn and today I gotta make some quick change in the shop. My plywood game needs some work and we're gonna try to fix that with a quick and simple plywood storage. That's gonna be the beginning of a complete shop overall. So I'm super excited about this and I don't know how long it's gonna take, but you're just gonna have to wait. Probably gonna find a way to incorporate some really cool and innovative stuff throughout this space. I just need it to be a little more functional for me. But as far as today's project, it may be a temporary fix or a long-term solution, and I just need a compact solution so I can get to it or not having to move things to get to it. Biggest question though is, how are you storing your plywood? This design is not an original from me, but I needed something quick, simple, and functional, and this design pretty much fit that. To get started, I lined up 2 sheets of plywood on the floor. I then placed a mark approximately 50 inches from one of the end. A section of the storage will have 3 different compartments to store lumber. The marks I'm making will be for the shelves. You may also notice I'm using 2 different types of plywood. One will be for the outside and obviously the more unattractive one will be on the inside. To set the edge of the router, I lined up the bit to the line and then placed a mark. I used the plywood on top as a guide as I attempt to route through both pieces of plywood in one pass. It took 2 passes to route out the dados for the shelves. Routing the dado tracks is a clean way to add shelves, but it's not the only way. You can always attach strips to the sides and place the shelves on top of those. Now after routing the first track, I added a second one. This way I can place smaller lumber in this area. Keep in mind these spacing are all user preference, whatever you choose to go with. Now I'll rip down a sheet of plywood that will set the width of the unit. All right, so I haven't tried this yet, but I have 2 plywoods on each side of the pocket hole jig. I got my drill set up and I also have the vacuum here. So I'm pretty much ready to go. It's just a matter of bringing the plywood over, shifting it back and forth and start drilling the pocket holes. And now that I have enough parts to work with, it's a simple matter of starting the assembly. I placed the back on the floor and one by one I added all the plywoods to that. Prior to adding the side, I ran a bit of glue on the plywood that's laying on the floor. If you guys remember these right angle jigs, here's another way you can use them. They played a good role in holding the plywood up while I installed the remaining pocket hole screws. I also applied glue prior to adding the bottom. And this lined up pretty well, so I'll go ahead and secure that. I added a few screws along the bottom and I repeated the same thing on the other end. To set the spacing of the divider, I'm going to use a scrap piece of wood that I had on hand. By using this, it will eliminate measuring and marking, which should speed things up. And just like the outer plywood, I'm going to secure the inside plywood with pocket hole screws. And I'll use another piece of scrap wood to properly space the final addition of the plywood side. And I'll repeat the same thing by installing pocket hole screws to secure the final side. And it's pretty obvious that my arms are not long enough to reach and install the pocket hole screws, so instead I'm going to use an extension like this that I can use to extend my reach. For me, adding a storage unit is just not enough. I need to have wheels on it so I can roll it around at will. For the wheels at the front, I set those back. This way, only the lock extend beyond the unit. Eventually I would have to swap out these casters. They are just too big and they make the cabinet sit too tall, but unfortunately they were the only ones in stock at the time. And finally I installed the remaining 2 at the back. Before flipping the unit up in the upright position, I lock the wheels, this way they don't move while I'm trying to tilt the unit over. The wheels are so smooth it feels like the unit is just gliding across the floor. All 4 of these wheels together are rated for 1,000 pounds. Now it may be hard to figure out how much you're actually going to store in here, but just keep that in mind. For me, I think 1,000 pounds should be good enough. If you remember early on in the video, I routed out these tracks so that I can easily install these shelves. Routing eliminates the need for adding support, and of course it's not the only way. You can add support onto each shelves, or you can use pocket hole screws and secure the shelves as well. Although that could be a bit difficult considering you have to reach in and install the pocket hole screws. Now I could glue these shelves in place, but I decided not to do that because one day I may break this down and use these plywood for a different project. So I'll secure the shelves by adding a few screws on the inside, and on the outside I'll just use a nail gun. For me, the most exciting part is loading my lumber on here because this means I get to see more wall space in the shop. I'm also not ruling it out, but I may add a door on here just so it can blend in better with the shop aesthetic. And right about now, I'm extremely excited. I'm thinking about making another one for some other loose lumbers I have laying around the shop. I just think it's just that useful. And if you're wondering, I do think it's wide enough and appear to be sturdy enough for a little bit of shaking, so I don't really see a situation where this is just tilt over on its own. After rolling this around enough, I do think a handle would make a lot of sense. And with the plywood leaning, this is dead space to me, so perfect solution. Well, that is it for this one, and until next time, thanks for watching.